A billionaire and a minimum wage worker both wake up to the same 24 hours. One of them would write a check for millions right now, without hesitation, just to have more of it. The other is giving away every hour of every day, hoping that someday, the money will finally be enough. And somewhere in that contradiction, in that strange, painful irony, lives a truth that almost nobody in modern life stops long enough to see. We have built an entire civilization around the pursuit of money. We have created careers, industries, self-help empires, and social hierarchies entirely organized around who has the most of it. And somewhere along the way, quietly, without announcement, we forgot to ask the one question that actually matters. What are we spending to get it? Not in dollars. In something far more expensive than dollars. Something that doesn't appear on a bank statement. Something that has no interest rate, and no grace period, and no way to earn it back once it's gone. Time. Not as a philosophical concept. Not as something to put on a motivational poster. But as the actual raw material of your life. The substance your existence is made of. The one resource that every human being, regardless of income, net worth, zip code, or ambition, receives in exactly the same fixed, non-negotiable, non-refundable amount. And most people are spending it like it's infinite. Here's something worth sitting with. The average American will spend roughly 90,000 hours working over the course of their lifetime. 90,000 hours. That's about a third of every waking moment you will ever have, handed to an employer, a career, a hustle in exchange for money that will then be used to buy back small pieces of comfort during the hours that remain. And we don't talk about this. Not really. We talk about salaries and promotions and side hustles and investment portfolios. We talk about the money constantly. But we almost never talk about what the money costs. We almost never sit down and ask, what is this actually taking from me? And is what I'm getting worth what I'm giving up? Think about the last time you said the words, "I don't have time." Think about how casually that sentence leaves your mouth. How automatic it's become. I don't have time to cook. I don't have time to call my parents. I don't have time to take that trip. I don't have time to figure out what I actually want from my life. Now ask yourself, who has your time, if you don't? The answer, for most working Americans, is the same. Someone else does. A company does. A boss does. A schedule built by someone else, for someone else's goals, running on someone else's priorities. And the arrangement is so normalized, so deeply embedded in how modern life is structured, that questioning it feels almost radical. Almost naive. Like you're missing something obvious that everyone else has already accepted. But here's the thing. You're not missing something. You're feeling something. And what you're feeling is real. There is a growing body of research, serious, peer-reviewed, academically rigorous research showing that beyond a certain income level, additional money does almost nothing for day-to-day emotional well-being. The number varies by study and by region, but the finding is consistent. Once your basic needs are met, and you have a reasonable buffer, more money adds very little to how good your life actually feels from the inside. What does move the needle dramatically, consistently, across cultures and income levels is autonomy. Control. The degree to which you feel like your time belongs to you. People who have lower incomes but high control over their schedules consistently report higher life satisfaction than people who earn significantly more but feel trapped by their obligations. A teacher who chooses her hours often feels richer in the way that actually matters than an attorney billing 80 hours a week at a firm that owns his calendar. This is not an argument against ambition. This is not a case for settling or shrinking your goals. This is something more uncomfortable than that. This is the suggestion that the thing most people are working so hard to afford, freedom, peace, a life that feels like theirs, may actually require less money than they think, and far more time than they're currently keeping. And most people won't realize that until it's too late. Burnout has become so common in modern America that we've started treating it like weather. Something that just happens. Something you push through and get back to work after. But burnout isn't an accident, and it isn't weakness. It is the predictable, physiological result of sustained high effort without sufficient recovery, meaning, or autonomy. It is what happens when a human being runs at full capacity, for too long, toward a goal that keeps moving. And the goal always keeps moving. That's the part that breaks people. You make $60,000 and you think, if I could just get to $80,000. You hit $80,000 and you think, if I could just get to six figures. You cross six figures and suddenly the benchmark is $150,000. Then $200,000. Then the house. Then the better house. Then the investment properties. Then something your brain told you would feel like arrival but somehow still feels like the beginning of the next climb. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. The idea that human beings adapt, rapidly and completely, to improvements in their circumstances. The raise that felt like a breakthrough becomes the new normal within months. The promotion that was supposed to change everything mostly just changes the difficulty level of the next problem. And the happiness that was supposed to live on the other side of the milestone doesn't move in once you get there because it was never really tied to the milestone. It was tied to the chase. And the chase never ends. So people keep running. And the years keep moving. And at some point, usually in a quiet moment, late at night, in a hotel room after a work trip, or on a Sunday when the dread of Monday arrives too early, the question surfaces. What am I doing this for? Not as a complaint. As a genuine, honest, slightly frightening question. What, exactly, is being built here? And when does the building stop being a means to something and become the whole point? This is the conversation that high-income America is quietly having and publicly refusing to have. Because admitting that the hustle isn't working, that the sacrifice isn't producing the life you imagined, feels like failure. It feels like you did something wrong. Like everyone else figured out something you missed. They didn't. Most of them are asking the same question in the same quiet moments, and going back to work the next morning without an answer. Here's what the research on regret, actual end-of-life regret research, the kind conducted with people who have very little time left, consistently finds. People do not lie on their deathbeds wishing they had billed more hours. They do not wish they had taken fewer vacations or missed more of their children's childhoods for the sake of a quarterly target. They do not wish they had answered more emails. They wish they had been present. They wish they had chosen differently when they had the chance to choose. They wish they had understood, earlier, that the life they were postponing was the only one they were going to get. And this is where the true definition of wealth begins to reveal itself. Real wealth is not the number on a balance sheet. Real wealth is a Tuesday afternoon that belongs to you. It is the ability to be somewhere that matters without calculating what it's costing you in productivity. It is the freedom to say no to the meeting, to the project, to the opportunity that pays well but costs something you can't afford to lose. It is the radical, quietly revolutionary act of living your actual life instead of funding a future version of it that may never arrive. Some people understand this young and build their entire financial life around protecting their time rather than maximizing their income. They live below their means not because they have to, but because doing so buys them something no salary can provide. They optimize not for the biggest number but for the most freedom. And often, not always, but often they end up with both. Most people understand it late. Some not until the time is already largely gone. And this isn't meant to be a verdict. It isn't a condemnation of ambition or work, or the desire to build something. Those things are real and they matter. But ambition without awareness is just speed without direction. And working hard toward a life you never stop to examine is one of the most common and least discussed forms of loss in modern America. So maybe the question isn't how much money you're making. Maybe the question is what your money is actually buying you. Whether the hours you're spending to earn it are coming from the parts of your life you can afford to give up or from the parts you can't. Maybe the goal was never to become the richest person in the room. Maybe the goal was to own enough of your time that your life, your actual, irreplaceable, non-renewable life, finally felt like it belonged to you. And maybe the saddest version of success is getting everything you worked for, and realizing too late that what you really wanted was the time you spent getting there.